Many people are saying one thing, but they sustain a different consciousness. This is why their life is a contradiction. Many people are professing one, but they have another consciousness. And this is one of the error you find with Christians. They come to church, they get them to talk in a certain way, and so you find the brother telling you, I am strong. I am strong means I'm sick. The moment he say I'm strong, he knows you know what he's saying. He will look at you and say, I am loaded. I'm loaded means I don't have money. And so we create all kinds of language. Meanwhile, while we are talking what we are talking, we ourselves know it's a cliche. Because as we are saying it, we know we understand what we are saying. Meanwhile, what we don't know is that that understanding we have is superior to what we are saying. When I'm telling you I'm loaded, and me and you know what I'm saying is that I'm poor, that mentality we have is superior to what we are saying. Because God is able to do exceeding abundantly above what you ask and think. It's not just above what you ask. So God responds also to what you think. And so if your thought is contrary to your words, your life is in a contradiction. You don't just know it. After a while, you will discover that you have ended up contradicting your life. And so when you believe what God said or says to you, it's your responsibility to sit down and convince yourself and program yourself to think like that and to think like that only. Many people just hear what God said and they run with it. They never sat down to convince themselves. They never sat down to program themselves to think like that. And so while they are saying what they are saying, somebody just tell them something that is contrary to what God said, and it diffuses that their enthusiasm in a second. The guy stands up and say, I will change this world, and somebody looks at him and say, you? The moment they laugh, he goes down, and so he fluctuates. The reason that can happen is because you have accepted the word, but you have not sat down to make that word your reality. It's your responsibility to sit down, because when you start building imagination, you will discover there are two dimensions to imagination. The first aspect of imagination is what we call reasoning. In the Greek word, you will see that this word is used interchangeably for the mind. The first word used for imagination is the word logismos, and logismos means arguments and reasoning. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10 from verse 3 to 5, when he said, though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, they are mighty through God to the pulling down of stronghold, casting down imaginations. The word used there is the word logismos. They are strong reasons, they are strong opinions, they are strong arguments. So when God tells you, for example, that I will send you to a nation and you will deliver that nation, don't just shout. Even if you believe it, sit down first and begin to talk to the Lord. Remember, Mary asked the angel, how shall these things be? That question is not a disagreement. It's to help her believe and understand what God said. And so many times God speaks to people, they don't sit with God to ask him how. When God spoke to Moses, he said, I will send you to Egypt. You will go to Pharaoh and say to Pharaoh, let my people go that they may worship me. Moses didn't just say, I've met God. He said, number one, the Israelites will not believe me. How will I tell the Israelites, what is your name? And God said, when you go, tell them, I am that I am have sent you. Moses didn't stop there. He said, what if I tell them and they don't believe? And God told Moses, put your hand in your bosom. He put his hand, he brought it out. The hand became leprous. God said, put it again and bring it out. It became normal. God gave Moses two signs. Moses still said, what if they doubt the first sign? And God said, drop the staff. And when they dropped the staff, it became a serpent. God now told him, pick it up by the tail. Because if you are not careful, if you carry it from the head, the staff that should destroy Egypt will destroy you first. And God told him, pick. Do you see why people's calling destroy them? The guy jumps up and says, God said I'm a prophet. And because he's a prophet, the first person he's arguing with is the president of his country. And then they arrest him, put him in Kirikiri prison. He is waiting for angels to come, and no angel shows up because he carried the staff from the head. You are a prophet, but you carried your staff from the head. If you had reasoned it with God, he would have told you, in the first 5 years of your life, be praying. You will start as an intercessor, and then after 5 years, you will become a teacher. After a teacher, you become an evangelist. After you become an evangelist, you will now build influence. Then you will become a prophet. Maybe it's on the 20th year of your calling that you can address government. But the guy woke up in the first 2 years of his calling because he looked at somebody and he said, your singlet is green, and the person said, ah, my singlet is green. How did you know? The next time he stand up, he said, the government of this state is rebellious. The government. The moment he finished, while he's here prophesying, DSS will come, and then he's wondering, why are the other ministers saying it and nothing is happening? God told them to carry by the tail. You are carrying from the head. I'm telling you why people don't manifest. If you know how many young people are cut off, God told you that with you he will start the biggest company, and then you stand up, you say, God spoke to me, I don't need anybody, because you heard Bishop Oedeko say, I don't need anybody. Meanwhile, you don't have the revelation that authorized people to say that, but you heard somebody say, I don't need anybody. You too stand up. Before you say that, ask God, before I don't need anybody, what do I need to know? Because there's a kind of knowledge you need to have for you not to need anybody. My son only sucks now. If he says he doesn't need anybody, he will die in 24 hours. Meanwhile, he may have the potential of becoming a global prophet, but now, if he says he doesn't need any, in fact, if the mother lives for 1 day, he will die. God is still alive, he will die. Hope you know that as powerful as Jesus was, when they wanted to kill the infant Jesus, God quickly mobilized Joseph. He said, run to Egypt, run. He didn't say, wait here and show them the power of God. Jesus would have died and there won't be any salvation. He said, take the child. The word is what? Child. This night, leave for Egypt. If you wait for tomorrow morning, Jesus will be killed. But when Jesus grew up, he said, no man taketh my life from me. He said, this commandment have I received of the Father. I have the power to lay down my life and to take it up. People shout without reasoning their calling. And so the first way to bet your ordination is logismus. You need to sit down and reason it out with God. Lord, I'm not afraid. Did you read the story of Gideon? I'm not afraid, Lord. But if you are the one saying this and this will happen, let the dew fall, and it should not fall on my staff. And that night the dew fell. It didn't fall on the staff, it fell everywhere. He said, Lord, sorry, I'm not doubting you, I'm actually believing. Let it fall on the staff today and let it not fall any other place. And God did it. The guy walked with God like that until even the soldiers that he carried, God had to show him how they will drink water to prove the ones he will carry. God had to send him to the camp of the Midianites for him to believe. See, it's called logismus. Faith is a very reasonable reality. The thing is that you don't argue faith with your circumstance, but you argue faith with God and find out, how shall these things be? How shall these things be? When God is done convincing you, even if Pharaoh stands up with a red eye, you won't be afraid anymore. Moses showed up and Pharaoh, he told Pharaoh, let my people go that they may worship me. He said, who is your God that I should let your people go? Moses dropped his staff. Pharaoh's men dropped their staff. His staff swallowed their staff swallowed their staff. He carried it up and he said, because you will not hear the voice of God. That's a man addressing a king that is called a son God. When God convinces you, nothing can discourage you. The reason people are easily discouraged is because they didn't wait with God to convince them, and so the reasoning part of their imagination is depleted. They are motivated until crisis comes, and when crisis comes and they see the vengeance of Pharaoh, they will discover that they are but mortals, because they didn't wait for God to work that conviction into their spirit. And so the first aspect of imagination is that aspect of God thoroughly proving you, to show you that what he has said, his faithfulness will defend it. And when God tells you that if the king wants, he should throw you to the lion's den, you will be there worshiping God.